My name is Karen R. Cespedes. I'm 52 years old. And this is the Christmas that broke my family. We all promised. No gifts this year. I trusted my mum. I trusted my family. I even told my kids, don't expect anything big. This year is about time together. But when we sat down on Christmas morning, my brother's kids unwrapped brand new iPhones. Not just any iPhones. The latest model. The ones that cost over $1,000 each. A $3,000 gaming laptop, with all the bells and whistles, RGB lights, the works, and VIP concert tickets to see their favorite artist. My kids? They sat there with nothing. Silent, embarrassed, holding the tin of homemade cookies they'd spent hours decorating with sprinkles and icing, trying to smile while their cousins screamed with joy. And while I swallowed my anger, while I tried to hold myself together for my children's sake, my dad laughed in my face and said I was just jealous. Before I tell you how that night ended, hit like, subscribe, and comment where you're watching from. Because what I'm about to share isn't just about one Christmas. It's about a lifetime of being used, dismissed, and treated like the family ATM, while everyone else got to be celebrated. And if you've ever felt like the person everyone takes from but nobody sees, you need to hear this. Let me tell you who I am, because context matters here. I am the responsible one. I have always been the responsible one. From the time I was 16 years old and got my first job at the grocery store, bagging groceries after school, I have been the planner, the fixer, the one who shows up. When my parents needed someone to help with the mortgage payment because they fell behind, who do you think they called? Me. When the car broke down and they needed $700 for repairs they didn't have, who got that call at 10 o'clock at night? Me. When my grandmother got sick and needed someone to coordinate her medical appointments, manage her medications, arrange for in-home care, who took off work, used their vacation days, and made it happen? Me. Always me. I'm not saying this to brag. I'm saying it because it's the truth. It's who I became in this family. The person who pays quietly. The person who fixes things. The person who can be counted on, depended on, drained, and then somehow expected to smile and pretend like it's all normal. I put myself through community college while working 2 jobs. I paid my own way. I bought my first car with money I saved from tips and overtime. When I got married at 26, I paid for half my own wedding because my parents said they couldn't afford to contribute. And you know what? I didn't complain. I didn't throw a fit. I just did what I always do. I handled it. I made it work. I adjusted my expectations and moved forward. I've worked as an office manager for the same company for 19 years. I'm not rich. I'm not rolling in money. But I'm stable. I pay my bills on time. I have a modest savings account. I own a small 3-bedroom house in a quiet neighborhood. I drive a 7-year-old Honda that runs perfectly fine. I live within my means. I plan ahead. I'm careful. I'm responsible. That's who I am. And then there's my brother. Derek is 4 years younger than me, 48 years old, and he has been the golden child since the day he was born. I'm not exaggerating. I'm not being dramatic. I watched it happen my entire life. He was the baby. He was the boy. He was charming and funny, and always knew how to make my parents laugh. And from the time he could talk, he's been able to talk his way out of anything. Derek didn't go to college. He bounced from job to job, always with some excuse. The boss didn't like him. The hours didn't work. The pay wasn't good enough. He got into sales for a while and made decent money, or so he said, but he spent it as fast as it came in. New truck, expensive watches, nights out at bars and restaurants. He's always had this flashy lifestyle that looks impressive from the outside, but anyone who looks closely can see it's all smoke and mirrors. He's always one bad month away from disaster, always borrowing money, always behind on something. But my parents? They think he's wonderful. They make excuses for him. Derek's going through a tough time. Derek's figuring things out. Derek just needs a little help to get back on his feet. It's been 30 years of the same story, and they still buy it. Every single time. When Derek got divorced 6 years ago, my parents paid for his lawyer, $5,000. When his truck got repossessed, my dad co-signed on a new loan for him. When he couldn't make rent last year, my mum sent him $800 without even asking him to pay it back. And every time I've brought it up, Every time I've gently suggested that maybe they should stop enabling him, they look at me like I'm the bad guy, like I'm cruel, like I don't understand what family means. But I do understand. I understand that in this family, love has always been conditional. And the condition is this: if you're responsible, if you're stable, if you don't need help, then you don't matter. This batch one. You're just expected to give, and never ask for anything in return. But if you're careless, if you're reckless, if you screw up constantly, you get sympathy, you get help, you get celebrated for the bare minimum. So that's the dynamic. That's the family I was born into. Me, the invisible workhorse. Derek, the beloved prince who can do no wrong. And that brings me to this Christmas. In early November, my mum called me. She said, "Karen, I've been thinking. This year has been hard for everyone, and I think we should keep Christmas simple. Let's just focus on being together. No big gifts. Maybe just some homemade things. Something small and meaningful. Let's make it about family, not money." I thought that sounded beautiful. Honestly, I was relieved. Money has been tight for me this year. My daughter needed braces $3,200, even with insurance. My son's school laptop died and had to be replaced. The furnace in my house broke in October and cost me $1,800 to fix. I was stretched thin. The idea of a low-key, budget-friendly Christmas sounded perfect. So I agreed. I told my mum, "Yes, let's do that. Let's keep it simple." And she said, "I'll talk to Derek too. I'll make sure everyone's on the same page." I called my kids into the living room that night and explained it to them. My daughter, Emma, is 14. My son, Jason, is 11. I sat them down and said, "This Christmas is going to be a little different. We're focusing on time together as a family. Grandma suggested we skip the big presents this year, and I think that's a wonderful idea. Let's make some cookies, maybe some homemade gifts, and just enjoy being together." They were disappointed. I could see it on their faces. But they're good kids. They nodded. They understood. Emma even said, "That's okay, Mom. I get it." Jason asked if we could still make gingerbread houses. And I said, "Of course." We spent an evening a few weeks later building those gingerbread houses, decorating them with candy canes and gumdrops, laughing at how lopsided they turned out. It was sweet. It was simple. It was exactly what Christmas should be. Emma and Jason decided to bake cookies for everyone. They spent hours in the kitchen on Christmas Eve. Chocolate chip, snickerdoodles, sugar cookies with red and green frosting. They carefully packed them into tins we decorated with ribbons and handwritten tags. They were so proud. My kids were so proud of what they made. I also called my brother to confirm. I wanted to make sure we were all on the same page. I said, "Hey Derek, Mum told me we're doing a no gifts Christmas this year. Just wanted to check in and make sure you knew." He laughed. He actually laughed and said, Yeah, I heard. Simple Christmas. Got it." I said, "Great. I think it'll be nice. Less stressful." He said, "Totally. We'll just hang out, eat good food, let the kids play. It'll be chill." I trusted him. I trusted my mom. I trusted that we had an agreement. Christmas morning, we drove over to my parents' house. It's a 20-minute drive, and the kids were chatting in the back seat, clutching their tins of cookies. I felt good. I felt light. I thought, for once, this is going to be a drama-free, peaceful holiday. We walked in. The house smelled like cinnamon and pine. My mum had the tree up, lights twinkling. Christmas music was playing softly in the background. My dad was in his recliner, watching a football pre-game show. Derek and his two kids, Aiden, who's 12, and Chloe, who's 15, were already there, sitting on the couch. We exchanged hugs. "Merry Christmas. How was your drive?" The usual pleasantries. My kids set the cookie tins on the dining table, and my mum smiled and said, "Oh, how sweet." But she didn't open them. She just left them there. We had breakfast. My mum made a big spread. Scrambled eggs, bacon, pancakes, fruit salad, orange juice. We sat around the table, eating and talking. It was nice. Normal. I started to relax, and then my dad said, "All right, Who's ready to open presents? I felt my stomach drop. I looked at my mum. She didn't look at me. I said, I thought we weren't doing presents this year. My dad waved his hand dismissively and said, Oh, we just picked up a few little things. Nothing crazy. A few little things. We all moved into the living room. My kids sat on the floor near the tree, still hopeful despite what I'd told them. Derek's kids were already eyeing the pile of gifts under the tree, gifts I hadn't noticed before, hidden behind the branches, wrapped in glossy paper with elaborate bows. My mum started handing out presents. First, to Aiden. He tore open the paper, and inside was a brand new iPhone, the latest model. The box gleamed in his hands. He screamed. Literally screamed. No way, no way. Oh my God. This is insane. Thank you, Grandma. Thank you, Grandpa. My heart started pounding. Then Chloe. She opened a rectangular box, and inside were VIP concert tickets, her favorite artist, front row seats, meet and greet passes. Her hands were shaking. She started crying, actual tears of joy, and threw her arms around my mum. This is the best gift ever. I can't believe this. I love you so much. Then another box for Aiden, bigger this time. He ripped it open, and inside was a gaming laptop. Not some basic model. A high-end, $3,000 gaming laptop, with a glowing logo and a sleek black finish. He was jumping up and down. Derek was laughing, clapping him on the back, taking pictures with his phone. The room was full of noise. Screaming, laughing, excitement. And my kids sat there, silent. Emma's hands were folded in her lap. Jason was staring at the floor. I looked at my mom. I said, Mom, what is this? She smiled. That same sweet smile she always uses when she's pretending everything's fine. She said, Oh, Karen, don't worry. We got a little something for your kids too. She handed Emma a small box. Inside was a $10 candle from the grocery store. She handed Jason a box of cheap chocolate. That was it. A candle. And chocolate. My kids didn't even react. They just said, Thank you, Grandma, in quiet, flat voices, and set the gifts aside. Meanwhile, Aiden was setting up his new laptop on the coffee table. Chloe was on her new iPhone, already texting her friends, squealing about the concert tickets. Derek was beaming, proud, soaking in the moment like he'd personally provided all of it. I felt like I couldn't breathe. I said, Mum. We agreed. No gifts. You said. She cut me off. Karen, it's Christmas. We wanted to do something nice for the kids. I said, Then why didn't you do something nice for my kids? My dad, still in his recliner, laughed. Actually laughed. He said, Oh, come on, Karen. Don't be jealous. It's not a competition. Jealous. He called me jealous. I looked around the room. Derek wouldn't look at me. My mum was suddenly very busy gathering wrapping paper. My dad went back to his football game like nothing had happened. My kids were still sitting on the floor, small and silent, holding their tins of homemade cookies that no one had even opened. I stood up. I didn't yell. I didn't scream. I just said, Emma, Jason, get your coats. We're leaving. My mum said, Karen, don't be ridiculous. We haven't even had dinner yet. I said, I'm not staying. Derek finally spoke up. He said, Seriously? You're going to make a scene over this? I turned to him. I looked him in the eye and said, You knew. You knew we agreed on no gifts. And you let this happen. He shrugged. He actually shrugged. Like it was nothing. Like my kids' feelings were nothing. I gathered our coats. My kids followed me in silence. As we walked to the door, my dad called out, You're being dramatic, Karen. You always do this. I didn't respond. I just left. The drive home was silent. Emma stared out the window. Jason didn't say a word. When we got home, I told them to go to their rooms for a bit, and I sat at the kitchen table, shaking. Not with anger. Not yet. Just with this overwhelming sense of betrayal, of exhaustion, of realizing that no matter how much I gave, no matter how responsible I was, I would never be seen. I would never be valued. Not in the way Derek was. Not in the way his kids were. And then I started thinking, really thinking about everything. Let me take you back, because this wasn't just about Christmas. This was the culmination of decades of the same pattern, over and over and over again. When I was 23 years old, fresh out of community college, working my first full-time job, my mum called me and asked if she could add my dad to my cell phone plan. She said their plan was too expensive, and if I added him, it would save them money. I said okay. I wanted to help. I added my dad. Then a few months later, she asked if I could add her too. Then Derek. Suddenly, I was paying for a family cell phone plan, covering 4 lines, while trying to make rent and pay off my student loans. I was spending an extra $120 a month. Did anyone offer to pay me back? No. Did anyone even thank me? Occasionally, maybe. But mostly, it was just expected. When I was 28, my mum asked if she could use my credit card to book a vacation. She said she'd pay me back. She didn't. I ate the charge. $1,100. When I was 31, my dad needed a new laptop for work. He asked if he could use my Amazon Prime account to order it. I said sure. Then my mum started using it. Then Derek. Suddenly, my Amazon account was linked to 3 other households, and I was getting charged for orders I didn't make. I didn't say anything. I just quietly changed the password and dealt with the angry texts later. When I was 34, Derek asked me to co-sign on an apartment lease because his credit was bad. I said no. That was one of the only times I ever said no. My mum called me and cried. She said I was being selfish. She said, "He's your brother. Family helps family." I held firm. I said no. Derek ended up getting the apartment anyway, but my mum didn't speak to me for 2 months. When I was 37, my mum asked if I could pay for my dad's prescription medication because they were short that month. I paid $260. They never paid me back. When I was 40, Derek asked if he could borrow my car for a week because his was in the shop. He returned it with an empty gas tank, a dent in the bumper, and a stain on the back seat. No apology, just, "Thanks, sis." When I was 42, my mum asked if she could use my Netflix account. I said sure. Then she gave the login to Derek. Then Derek gave it to his girlfriend at the time. Then somehow, my account was being used by 6 different people, and I was paying for the premium plan to accommodate everyone. When I was 45, my dad had a minor medical emergency and needed to stay overnight at the hospital. I took off work, drove 2 hours to be there, sat with him, coordinated with the doctors, handled the insurance paperwork, and drove him home the next day. Derek didn't even call. My mum thanked me, but when I mentioned that I'd used 2 vacation days and could really use some help covering the gas for all the back and forth trips, she said, "Well, Karen, he's your father. You don't do these things expecting something in return." When I was 47, Derek lost his job, again. And my parents asked me if I could help him out with some money to get through the month. I sent him $500. He never paid it back. But 3 weeks later, I saw on Facebook that he'd gone to a baseball game with his buddies, premium seats. When I was 49, my mum asked if I could add her to my Costco membership, then asked if I could add Derek too. So suddenly I was the one paying for the membership while they were the ones using it, filling their carts, and I'd see the charges on my account and just swallow it. Last year, when I was 51, my mum asked if she could use my credit card to book flights to visit Derek because he'd moved 4 states away for a new opportunity that lasted all of 3 months. She said she'd pay me back. The flights cost $800. I'm still waiting for that money. This year alone, in the 12 months leading up to this Christmas, here's what I paid for. 6 months of my parents' streaming services, because they didn't want to pay for them themselves. That's about $75 total. 3 emergency grocery runs when my mum called and said they were short on cash until Dad's Social Security check came in. That was probably $400 combined. $150 for Derek's car insurance, when he called me in a panic saying it was going to lapse and he'd lose his license. $200 to help my mum with her property tax payment. $85 for a birthday dinner for my dad, at a nice restaurant that I wasn't even invited to, by the way. They asked me to send money so they could take Derek and his kids out to celebrate. I found out later, from a photo my mum posted online, $300, when Derek's son, Aiden, needed a school trip deposit, and Derek claimed he was between paychecks. And none of this includes the ongoing cell phone plan, the Amazon account that I finally locked down after thousands of dollars of unauthorized purchases over the years, or the countless small things: coffee here, gas money there. Can you just cover this real quick? Add it all up, and I've probably given my family close to $60,000 or $70,000 over the course of my adult life. Maybe more. I've never kept an exact count, because if I did, I think I'd lose my mind. And how much have I been given in return? Nothing. Not money. Not help. Not even acknowledgement. When my furnace broke this past October, and I was scrambling to cover the cost, did I call my parents? No. Because I knew what would happen. They'd say they didn't have it. Or they'd say they'd help and then never follow through. Or worse, they'd say, well, can't you just put it on a credit card? Like I haven't been putting their emergencies on my credit cards for 30 years. When my daughter needed braces, and I was stressed about the cost, did anyone offer to help? No, my mum said. Oh, that's tough. And changed the subject. But when Derek needs something, the cavalry arrives, the checkbook opens, the excuses flow. He's been through so much. He's trying his best. He just needs a little support. What about me? What about the fact that I've been showing up, trying my best, supporting everyone for decades, and I've never once asked for a handout, never once made my problems everyone else's emergency? I'll tell you what I get. I get called jealous when I finally show even a flicker of pain. So yes, this Christmas was the breaking point. But it wasn't the beginning. It was the end of a very, very long story. Let me take you back to that living room one more time, because I need you to understand exactly what happened. I need you to see what I saw. Aiden Derek's 12-year-old son was holding that iPhone like it was the Holy Grail. He was FaceTiming his friends within minutes, showing it off, the camera flipping around to show the pile of gifts still sitting under the tree. He was practically levitating with excitement. Chloe, 15 years old, was taking selfies with her new phone, posting about the concert tickets on Instagram, typing out captions about how blessed she was, how amazing her grandparents were, how this was the best Christmas ever. I watched her type it. I was standing 5 feet away, and I watched her type. I have the most generous family in the world. And my kids, my beautiful, kind, thoughtful kids who spent hours baking cookies, decorating them with care, writing little notes on the tags, hoping to make everyone smile, sat there with a candle and a box of chocolate, watching their cousins celebrate like they'd won the lottery. Emma wasn't crying. I wish she had been. Crying would have been honest. Crying would have been something I could respond to. Instead, she just looked. Empty. Hollow. Like she was trying to figure out what she'd done wrong. Like she was internalizing the message that was being screamed at her in that moment. You don't matter as much. Jason picked at the wrapping paper on the chocolate box, tearing little pieces and rolling them into balls, just to have something to do with his hands. He didn't look at anyone. He didn't ask questions. He just withdrew. And my parents, who raised me, who taught me about fairness and honesty and doing the right thing, they sat there and acted like this was normal, like this was fine. My mum even said, at one point, while Aiden was setting up his laptop, "Isn't it wonderful to see the kids so happy?" The kids. Not all the kids. Not my kids. Just Derek's kids. Because in that moment, in that room, my kids were invisible. And when I stood up to leave, when I calmly told my children to get their coats, my dad, my father, looked at me like I was the problem. He actually rolled his eyes and said, "Here we go. Drama Queen Karen strikes again." Drama Queen Karen. I have spent 52 years being the least dramatic person in this family. I have swallowed every slight, every inequity, every dismissal, without a word. I have paid and sacrificed, and showed up and kept my mouth shut, because I didn't want to cause problems. I didn't want to be a burden. I didn't want to be difficult. And the one time I stood up and said, "This isn't okay," I got called a drama queen. Derek didn't even try to defend me. He didn't tell Dad to back off. He didn't acknowledge that maybe, just maybe, this situation was messed up. He just sat there, smirking, like he'd won, like he always wins. Because that's the thing about being the golden child. You don't have to fight for your place. It's already yours. It's always been yours. You don't have to earn love, or respect, or generosity. It's just handed to you, over and over, no matter how many times you screw up, no matter how little you give back. The drive home felt like it took hours, even though it was only 20 minutes. I kept replaying the scene in my mind. The screaming, the jumping, the phones and laptops and tickets, the candle, the chocolate, my mum's face, so cheerful, so oblivious, my dad's laugh, Derek's silence, and my kids. God, my kids. When we got home, I sent them to their rooms because I needed a minute to think. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the wall, and something inside me just snapped. Not into anger, not yet. Into clarity. I realized, sitting there, that I'd been waiting my whole life for my family to see me, to value me, to recognize everything I'd done, and say, "Thank you, we see you, you matter." But they never would, because they didn't need to, because I kept showing up, kept giving, kept paying, kept fixing, without ever demanding anything in return. I trained them to treat me this way. I taught them that I was the person they could take from, endlessly, and I'd never push back. And if I didn't stop it, it would never end. It would just continue, year after year, until I was completely drained, until I had nothing left, until my own kids learned that this was what love looked like, being used and dismissed, and told to smile about it. I couldn't let that happen, so I made a decision. A calm, clear, final decision. I pulled out my phone and started going through my accounts. First, the cell phone plan. I logged in and saw all 4 lines. Mine, my mum's, my dad's, Derek's. I removed them. All 3 of them. Just like that. I switched my plan to a single line. The changes would take effect at the end of the billing cycle. I didn't send a warning text. I didn't explain. I just did it. Next, the streaming services. Netflix, Hulu, Disney+, HBO Max, every single one that I'd been sharing with my family for years. I logged into each account and signed out all devices. Then I changed the passwords. Every single one. Then, my Amazon account. I went into the settings and removed every shared address, every authorized user. I locked it down so that only I could use it. Then, I went into my credit card accounts. I saw the authorized users. My mum, my dad. I removed them. Both of them. I looked up my Costco membership. I couldn't remove them online. So I made a note to call customer service first thing after Christmas and have them taken off. Every subscription, every shared access, every little thread that tied my wallet to my family. I cut it. One by one. Methodically. Calmly. It took about 45 minutes. When I was done, I sat back and took a deep breath. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel triumphant. I just felt free. Like I'd been carrying a backpack full of stones for 30 years, and I'd finally set it down. I went upstairs and checked on my kids. Emma was lying on her bed, staring at the ceiling. I sat down next to her and said, "I'm sorry about today." She said, "It's okay, Mum." I said, "No, it's not okay. It wasn't fair, and it wasn't right. But I want you to know something. You are not less than. You are not worth less. What happened today says nothing about you. It says everything about them." She didn't say anything, but she nodded. I went to Jason's room. He was playing with Legos, building something elaborate and complicated. I sat on the floor next to him and said, "Hey, buddy, you okay?" He shrugged. I said, "I know today was hard. I'm sorry." He said, "Why did Grandma and Grandpa give them so much stuff and not us?" And God, that question. That innocent, confused, painful question. I said, "I don't know, sweetheart. I don't think it's about you. I think it's about them. Sometimes grown-ups make bad choices, even when they love you." He said, "Do they love us?" I didn't know how to answer that. So I just hugged him. That night, Christmas night, I made hot chocolate. Real hot chocolate. Not the instant kind. I melted chocolate bars and added milk and cinnamon and a little vanilla. I poured it into mugs, added whipped cream and marshmallows, and called the kids downstairs. We sat in the living room with the lights off, except for the glow of our own little Christmas tree. A modest 4-footer I'd gotten on sale, decorated with homemade ornaments and cheap tinsel. We drank a hot chocolate and watched a movie. Some old comedy we'd seen a dozen times. And we laughed. We actually laughed. It wasn't the Christmas I'd planned, but it was peaceful. It was ours. I didn't check my phone that night. I knew what was coming, and I wasn't ready yet. But the next morning, it started. I woke up to 43 missed calls. 43. My mum, 18 calls. My dad, 9 calls. Derek, 16 calls. There were also 37 text messages. From my mum. Karen, call me right now. Something's wrong with my phone. I can't make calls. Did you do something? Karen, answer me. This is unacceptable. Call me immediately. From my dad. What the hell did you do? My phone isn't working. You need to fix this. I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but it's not funny. From Derek. Really, Karen? You're that petty? You cut off Mum and Dad's phones on Christmas. What is wrong with you? This is low, even for you. You're being a child. I didn't respond to any of them. Not yet. Then my mum tried calling from a neighbour's phone. I recognized the number from the caller ID. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail. I listened to it later. She was crying. Actual tears. She said, Karen, I don't understand what I did to make you so angry. Please call me back. You're hurting me. You're being so cruel. Please. We can talk about this. Cruel. I was being cruel. For stopping the flow of money. For setting a boundary. For refusing to be used anymore. Derek sent another string of texts. Mum's a mess. Dad's furious. You need to fix this. You're embarrassing yourself. Everyone thinks you're being ridiculous. Is this because of the Christmas presents? Seriously? You're going to punish Mum and Dad because you're jealous? There's that word again. Jealous. I wasn't jealous. I was done. My dad sent an email because his phone didn't work. The subject line was disappointed. The email said, Karen, I'm ashamed of you. I never thought I'd see the day when my own daughter would be so vindictive and selfish. Your mother is devastated. You've humiliated us. Over what? Some toys for your brother's kids? You're acting like a spoiled brat. Fix this now. Or, I don't know if I can forgive you. I read that email 3 times. My hands were shaking. Not with fear. With rage. Vindictive. Selfish. Spoiled brat. This man who laughed in my face when my kids sat there empty-handed, who dismissed my pain as jealousy, who has taken thousands of dollars from me without a single word of gratitude, was calling me selfish. I didn't respond to the email, but I saved it. I wanted to remember those words. By the afternoon, Derek had escalated. He posted on Facebook. He didn't name me directly, but it was obvious. He wrote, It's sad when family turns on each other, over petty drama. Some people can't handle other people's happiness, and would rather tear everyone down than deal with their own issues. Disappointed doesn't even cover it. The comments poured in. Friends of his, family members who had no idea what was really going on. So sorry you're dealing with this. Family can be so toxic. Stay strong, Derek. I didn't respond. I didn't engage. But I watched. I saw how quickly the narrative shifted. How quickly I became the villain. My mum called again. This time from Derek's phone. I answered. She said, Karen, please, can we talk about this? I said, There's nothing to talk about, Mum. She said, You cut off our phones. You cut off our Netflix. You removed me from your credit card. Why would you do that? I said, Because I'm done. She said, Done with what? I said, Done paying for everything. Done being taken for granted. Done being the family ATM while Derek gets celebrated, and I get called jealous. She said, This isn't about Derek. This is about you being upset over Christmas gifts. I said, No, Mom. This is about 30 years of being used and dismissed, and expected to just take it. She said, We never asked you to do any of those things. Well, and that right there made something inside me snap. I said, Are you serious? You called me 6 months ago and asked me to pay for Dad's property taxes. You asked me to send money for groceries. You've been using my cell phone plan for 15 years without paying a dime. You've been on my Netflix, my Amazon, my credit card. You've asked, and asked, and asked, and I've given, and given, and given. And now you're telling me you never asked? She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "We thought you wanted to help." I said, "I did want to help, but help is supposed to be mutual. Help is supposed to come with gratitude, not entitlement." She said, "You're overreacting." And there it was. The thing she always said when she didn't want to deal with my feelings. "You're overreacting. You're too sensitive. You're being dramatic." I said, "No, Mom. I'm reacting exactly the right amount for someone who just watched her children be humiliated on Christmas morning, while you and Dad smiled and pretended everything was fine." She started crying again. "Karen, we didn't mean to hurt anyone. We just wanted to do something special for Derek's kids. They've been through so much with the divorce, and all the moving around." I cut her off. "And my kids? What about what they've been through? Emma needed braces this year that I could barely afford. Jason's been struggling in school, and we've been trying to get him a tutor on my budget. Where were you when my furnace broke in October, and I was scrambling to find $1,800 so my kids wouldn't freeze? Where were you then? Cole, I am so. Karen, we didn't know. Because I didn't tell you. Because I knew if I called you, you'd say you didn't have it, or you'd say you'd help, and then never follow through. Or Derek would need something the next day, and suddenly the money would appear for him. So I just handled it myself, like I always do." "That's not fair," she said, her voice getting sharper. "We've helped you plenty over the years." I actually laughed. I couldn't help it. "When?" I said. "When have you helped me, Mum? Name one time in the last 20 years that you've given me money, or time, or support when I needed it." Silence. "I'm waiting," I said. "Well, we watched the kids that time when you had the flu. That was 7 years ago. For 3 hours. And you called me 4 times during those 3 hours, asking when I was coming to pick them up, because Dad wanted to watch his game." More silence. "Mum, I kept a mental tally for years. I tried not to. I tried to tell myself that family isn't about keeping score. But, you know what? When the score is 10,000 to 0, it's not about being petty. It's about recognizing a pattern." She said, quietly, "So what do you want? You want us to pay you back?" I said, "No. I want you to stop. I want you to stop calling me when you need something. I want you to stop expecting me to fix everything. I want you to stop treating me like I'm worth less than Derek. That's what I want." She said, "We don't treat you differently than Derek." And that made me so angry, I could barely see straight. I said, "You bought his kids $1,000 phones, and concert tickets, and a $3,000 laptop. You gave my kids a candle, and chocolate. And you're telling me you don't treat us differently?" Derek's been struggling financially. "Mom, I've been struggling financially. I've been struggling for years. But I don't complain. I don't ask for handouts. I just handle it. And apparently, that makes me invisible." My voice was shaking now. I was yelling. I never yell. I said, "Do you know what message you sent my kids on Christmas? You told them that they matter less, that their cousin's happiness is more important than theirs, that their homemade gifts they spent hours making with love, weren't good enough. You didn't even open the cookies, Mom. You didn't even open them." She was crying harder now. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't think." "No, you didn't think. You never think. You just do what you want and expect me to absorb it and stay quiet. Karen, please. Can we just move past this? It's Christmas. It's the day after Christmas. And no, we can't just move past this. Not this time." She said, her voice desperate now. "What do you want me to do? Tell me what to do and I'll do it." I said, "I want you to stop calling me unless you're ready to apologize. A real apology. Not, 'I'm sorry you feel that way.' I want you to acknowledge what you did. I want you to tell my kids that they matter. And I want you to stop enabling Derek while ignoring me." She said, "You're asking me to choose between my children." "No," I said, my voice cold now. "I'm asking you to treat your children equally. If that feels like choosing, that tells you everything you need to know. I'm asking you. No. I hung up. My hands were trembling. My heart was racing. But I didn't feel bad. I felt powerful. For the first time in my entire adult life, I felt powerful. The calls kept coming for the next 2 days. I didn't answer. I let them go to voicemail. I listened to some of them, deleted others, without listening. My dad left a message that said, "You're tearing this family apart. I hope you're proud of yourself." Derek left a message that said, "You know what your problem is. You think the world owes you something. Grow up." My mum left several messages, each one more desperate than the last. "Please call me back. I miss you. I don't know what to do. Your father is so upset." Oh. I didn't respond to any of them. But then, on the 3rd day after Christmas, I got a text from my cousin Rachel. Rachel is my mum's sister's daughter. We've always been friendly, but not super close. She's a few years younger than me, lives a few states away, and we mostly just interact at family gatherings. Her text said, "Hey Karen, I heard about what happened at Christmas. I'm sorry. For what it's worth, I think you're doing the right thing. Your aunt and I have talked about the way your parents treat you versus Derek for years. We've always thought it was unfair. Just wanted you to know, you're not crazy. You're not the bad guy. Hang in there." I sat on my couch and cried when I read that. Real, heaving sobs. Because for the first time, someone from my family was validating what I'd felt for my entire life. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't imagining it. It was real. I texted her back, "Thank you. You have no idea how much I needed to hear that." She responded, "I can imagine. And if you need anything, I'm here." Over the next few days, I got a few more texts from extended family members. My Uncle Tom, my mum's brother, sent me a message saying, "I don't know all the details, but I know you're a good person and a great mom. Don't let anyone make you doubt that." My cousin Jen, who's close to my age, sent me a message saying, "I heard your mum's version of events. Just so you know, it sounds like BS. You don't owe anyone an explanation. Take care of yourself." These little messages, these small acts of support from people on the periphery of my life, meant everything. They reminded me that I wasn't alone, that other people saw the dysfunction too. But my parents and Derek didn't stop. They kept pushing. On New Year's Eve, my mum showed up at my house. I looked through the peephole and saw her standing on my porch, wrapped in her winter coat, looking small and cold. Part of me wanted to let her in. Part of me wanted to hug her and pretend everything was fine. But I didn't. I opened the door, but left the screen door closed and locked. I said, "What are you doing here, Mom?" She said, "I wanted to talk to you. Face to face. You won't answer my calls." I said, "I told you I need an apology." She said, "I've apologized a dozen times." "No," I said. "You've said I'm sorry you're upset, and I'm sorry this happened, and I didn't mean to hurt anyone. That's not an apology. That's deflection." She looked down at her hands. "Karen, I don't know what else to say." I said, "Say, I was wrong. I should have kept my promise about no gifts. And when I changed my mind, I should have told you. I should have treated your kids the same as Derek's kids. I'm sorry for dismissing your feelings and calling you jealous. You deserved better." She stood there, silent. The seconds ticked by. "Finally," she said, "Derek's kids have had a hard year. And just like that, I knew. She would never apologize. She would never admit fault, because in her mind, she didn't do anything wrong. Derek would always have an excuse. His kids would always deserve more. And I would always be expected to understand." I said, "Goodbye, Mom." She said, "Karen, wait." I closed the door. I locked it. I walked away. She stood on my porch for another 10 minutes. I watched her through the window. She knocked a few more times. She called my name, but I didn't go back. Eventually, she left. That night, Emma came downstairs while I was sitting on the couch, staring at nothing. She sat next to me and said, "Was that Grandma?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "Are you okay?" I looked at my daughter, my smart, perceptive, beautiful daughter, and I said, Yeah, I am, she said. I'm proud of you, Mum. I started crying. I pulled her into a hug and said, "Thank you, baby." She said, "You don't have to let people treat you badly, even if they're family." And I realized, in that moment, that I'd taught her something important, not by what I'd said, but by what I'd done. I taught her that boundaries matter, that self-respect matters, that love shouldn't come with a price tag. Jason came downstairs a few minutes later, drawn by the sound of voices. He squeezed onto the couch with us, and the three of us sat there together, watching the fire in the fireplace, not saying much. It was peaceful. It was right. The next week, my dad sent me an email. The subject line was, "Final warning." I almost didn't open it, but curiosity got the better of me. It said, "Karen, this has gone on long enough. You need to apologize to your mother and fix what you broke. If you don't, you're no longer welcome at family gatherings. We will not tolerate this disrespect. The ball is in your court." I read it twice, and then I wrote back. I said, "Dad, I will not apologize for setting boundaries. I will not apologize for refusing to be treated like a second-class member of this family. I will not apologize for standing up for my children. If that means I'm not welcome at family gatherings, then so be it. I'd rather be excluded with my dignity intact than included on the condition that I stay silent and keep paying. The ball was never in my court. You've been holding it for 30 years, and you just never noticed because I never complained. I'm done playing the game. Take care of yourself." I hit send before I could second-guess myself. He didn't respond. Derek sent me one more text a few days later. It said, "You're dead to me." I didn't respond. I just blocked his number. My mum tried calling a few more times over the next 2 weeks, but I didn't answer. Eventually, the calls stopped. And then, silence. For the first time in my adult life, my phone wasn't ringing with requests. My inbox wasn't full of emergencies. My accounts weren't being drained by other people's needs. It was quiet, and it was beautiful. I'm not going to lie and say it didn't hurt. It did. It still does. There are moments when I miss my mum, when I want to call her and tell her something funny Emma said, or ask her advice about something small and ordinary. There are moments when I imagine what it would be like if my family were different, if they could see me, if they could love me the way I loved them. But then I remember Christmas morning. I remember my kids' faces. I remember the candle and the chocolate and the iPhones and the laptop. I remember my dad laughing and calling me jealous. I remember 30 years of being used and dismissed and expected to be grateful for scraps. And I remember that I deserve better. My kids deserve better. It's been 2 months since Christmas. 2 months since I cut off the financial ties and set the boundaries and walked away from the toxicity. And you know what? My life is better. My house is peaceful. There's no tension. No waiting for the next crisis. No bracing myself for the next phone call asking for money I don't have. My kids are thriving. Emma is doing great in school. Jason is smiling more. We have family movie nights and game nights and long conversations over dinner. We laugh. We play. We exist without the weight of my family's dysfunction hanging over us. Last weekend, we made homemade pizza from scratch. The dough was too sticky, and the kitchen was a mess, and we laughed so hard, we could barely breathe. It was one of the best nights I've had in years. I started putting the money I used to spend on my family into a savings account for my kids, college funds, emergency funds, money for their future, not for someone else's latest crisis. I also started going to therapy. I found a counselor who specializes in family trauma and codependency. It's hard. It's painful. But it's helping. I'm learning to recognize the patterns, to understand how I got here, to forgive myself for staying so long. I'm learning that I'm not responsible for other people's choices. I'm not responsible for fixing everything. I'm not responsible for earning love by draining myself dry. My therapist asked me, in one session, what would you tell your younger self if you could go back? I thought about it for a long time, and then I said, I'd tell her that she's enough. That she doesn't have to prove her worth by giving everything away. That love shouldn't hurt this much. My therapist nodded and said, "It's not too late to tell yourself that now." So I'm trying. I'm trying to believe that I'm enough. That I'm worthy of love and respect without having to earn it. That setting boundaries doesn't make me selfish, it makes me healthy. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know if my mum will ever really apologize. I don't know if my dad will ever see me as anything other than the difficult daughter who ruined Christmas. I don't know if Derek will ever stop playing the victim, but I do know this. I'm not going back. I'm not going back to being the invisible workhorse. I'm not going back to swallowing my pain and pretending everything's fine. I'm not going back to teaching my kids that love means letting people use you. I'm done. And that doesn't make me cruel. It doesn't make me selfish. It doesn't make me a drama queen. It makes me free. You know what's funny? People talk about toxic relationships like they're always romantic. Like it's always about a bad boyfriend or a terrible spouse. But nobody talks about how toxic family can be. How your own parents, your own siblings, can drain you and diminish you and make you feel worthless. Nobody talks about how hard it is to set boundaries with family, because we're taught from birth that family is everything, that blood is thicker than water, that you're supposed to forgive and forget and keep showing up no matter what. But that's garbage. That's a lie. We tell ourselves to justify staying in painful, unbalanced relationships that damage us. The full phrase, by the way, is, "The blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb." It means the bonds we choose are stronger than the bonds we're born into. It means family is who shows up for you, who values you, who treats you with love and respect. And by that definition, my parents and brother aren't my family anymore. My family is Emma and Jason. My family is the friends who checked in on me when everything fell apart. My family is my cousin Rachel, who sent that one text that made me feel less alone. My family is my therapist, who's helping me rebuild. My family is everyone who sees me and values me, not because of what I can give them, but because of who I am. I didn't ruin Christmas. I didn't destroy my family. I ended a story where love meant draining me dry. I ended a cycle of abuse, disguised as obligation. I ended a lifetime of being told that my pain didn't matter, and my needs were secondary, and my children were worth less than my brother's children. And if my parents can't see that, if they can't understand why I walked away, then that's their loss, not mine. My kids will grow up learning that generosity is a choice, not a trap. They'll learn that boundaries are healthy. They'll learn that you don't have to set yourself on fire to keep other people warm. They'll learn that love, real love, doesn't come with conditions. It doesn't come with price tags. It doesn't come with the expectation that you'll give everything and ask for nothing and smile while you're being bled dry. Real love is reciprocal. Real love is respectful. Real love sees you and values you and celebrates you, not just when you're useful, but always. My parents can keep their iPhones and their concert tickets and their $3,000 laptops. They can keep their excuses and their denial and their golden child. I'll keep my family, my real family. I'll keep my peace. I'll keep my boundaries. I'll keep my dignity. And I'll keep moving forward. Because for the first time in my life, I'm not looking back over my shoulder, wondering if I did enough. I'm not lying awake at night, calculating how much more I can give before I completely break. I'm not teaching my children that love is supposed to hurt. I'm teaching them something better. Last week, Emma came to me with money she'd been saving from babysitting. She said, "Mum, I want to help with groceries." And my heart just about broke. Because for a second, I saw myself at her age, already learning to sacrifice, already taking on burdens that weren't mine to carry. I sat her down, and I said, "Baby, that's your money. You earned it. You keep it for something you want." She said, "But I want to help. I want to contribute to the family." And I said, "You do contribute. You help around the house. You watch your brother when I need you to. You make us laugh. You're a good student. You're kind. That's your contribution. Your job isn't to worry about money. That's my job. Your job is to be 14 and save for things that make you happy." She looked at me uncertainly, like she wasn't sure if it was okay to keep her own money. And that's when I knew, really knew, that I'd made the right choice. Because I broke the cycle. I stopped it before it could infect another generation. My daughter will not grow up believing that her worth is measured by what she can give away. She will not spend her adult life being drained by people who should protect her. She will not sit at a Christmas gathering one day watching her children be humiliated while someone laughs in her face. I made sure of that. And Jason, my sweet, sensitive Jason, he's been drawing pictures lately. He drew one of our family last week. Him, me, and Emma, all holding hands with big smiles, standing in front of our house. The sun is shining. There are flowers everywhere. He didn't include anyone else, just the three of us. When I asked him about it, he said, I drew our family, our happy family, our happy family. Not grandparents who dismiss him, not an uncle who ignores him, not cousins who are valued more than he is. Just us, the three of us, happy. And that's worth everything I lost. Everything. You know what nobody tells you about setting boundaries? They don't tell you that it gets easier. Those first few weeks were agony. Every time my phone rang, my heart would race. Every time I saw a car that looked like my mum's, I'd tense up. Every time I thought about what I'd done, I'd second-guess myself. Wonder if I'd overreacted. Wonder if I should just apologize and go back to how things were. But now when my phone rings, I don't panic. Now when I see a car like my mum's, I don't even flinch. Now when I think about what I did, I feel proud. Because I chose myself. For the first time in my life, I chose myself and my children over the comfort of people who never valued us. And the world didn't end. The sky didn't fall. Life went on better than before, actually. I got a promotion at work last month. Nothing huge, but a solid raise and more responsibility. My boss said she'd noticed I seemed more focused lately, more present. She said I seemed like a weight had been lifted. She had no idea how right she was. I've been sleeping better. I used to wake up at 3 a.m. with anxiety, my mind racing through all the things I needed to fix, all the people I needed to help, all the money I needed to find. Now I sleep through the night. Solid, peaceful sleep. I've been eating better too. I didn't even realize how much stress I was carrying in my body until it was gone. My jaw doesn't hurt anymore from clenching. My shoulders aren't constantly tight. My stomach doesn't twist into knots every time I check my bank account. I'm lighter. Physically, emotionally, mentally. I'm lighter. And my kids see it. Jason said to me a few weeks ago, Mum, you smile more now. That broke my heart and healed it at the same time. I do smile more now. Because I'm not performing anymore. I'm not pretending. I'm not forcing myself to be grateful for crumbs while watching other people feast. I'm just living. Really living. We took a trip last weekend. Nothing fancy, just a drive to a state park 2 hours away. We hiked a trail, had a picnic, skipped stones on a lake. It cost maybe $40 total for gas and snacks. And it was perfect. Emma took 1,000,000 pictures. Jason collected interesting rocks and insisted on bringing half of them home. We sang stupid songs in the car. We laughed until our sides hurt. On the drive home, as the sun was setting and the kids were dozing in the back seat, I had this moment of pure clarity. This is what life is supposed to feel like. Not dread, not obligation, not the constant weight of other people's expectations. Joy, freedom, peace. I thought about my parents, probably sitting in their living room right now, probably still complaining about me, probably still casting me as the villain in their story. And I didn't feel angry anymore. I just felt sorry for them. Sorry that they're so invested in their narrative, that they can't see what they lost. Sorry that they chose enabling my brother over having a relationship with me and my children. Sorry that they'll never understand that love without respect is just manipulation with a prettier name. But their inability to see the truth isn't my problem anymore. I can't make them understand. I can't force them to value me. I can't change 30 years of patterns and preferences and priorities. All I can do is protect myself and my children. All I can do is build a life that doesn't include people who hurt us. And that's exactly what I'm doing. I started a new tradition with my kids. Every Sunday night, we have family meeting. We each share one thing that was hard that week, and one thing that was good. Then we plan the week ahead together. We talk about schedules and homework, and what's for dinner, and who needs what. But more than that, we talk about feelings, about boundaries, about respect. Last Sunday, Emma shared that a friend at school had been asking to borrow money, constantly, and never paying her back. She said she felt bad saying no, because they were friends. I said, friends don't put you in positions where you have to sacrifice to make them comfortable. Real friends respect your boundaries. You can say no and still be kind. You can say no and still be a good friend. But if she stops being your friend because you stop giving her money, She was never really your friend to begin with. Emma nodded slowly, processing. Then she said, like with Grandma and Grandpa? I said, yeah, baby. Like with Grandma and Grandpa. Jason said, are we ever going to see them again? And I said, honestly, I don't know. Maybe someday, if they can learn to treat us with respect. But maybe not. And either way, we're going to be okay. He thought about it, then said, we're better than okay. We're happy. Then out of the mouths of babes, we're happy. We really are. Is there still pain? Of course. There are moments when I miss my mum, when I wish things were different, when I grieve the family I always wanted, but never really had. But grief doesn't mean I made the wrong choice. Grief just means I loved people who couldn't love me back the way I deserved. And that's sad, but it's not a reason to go back. You don't go back to a burning building just because you miss the furniture. I've been thinking about sharing this story publicly for a while now. I've been scared. Scared of being judged. Scared of people saying I'm the one who's wrong. Scared of my family seeing it and coming after me again. But then I realized there are probably thousands of people out there living the same story. Thousands of people who are the responsible one. The fixer. The one who gives and gives, while everyone else takes and takes. Thousands of people who feel guilty for even thinking about setting boundaries, because they've been taught that family means endless sacrifice. Those people need to hear this. They need to know they're not alone. They need to know that it's okay to walk away. That it's okay to choose peace over obligation. That it's okay to say no more and mean it. So here I am, telling my story. 52 years old, single mom, office manager, survivor of family dysfunction, that masqueraded as love for 3 decades. I'm telling you, if your family treats you like an ATM, you're allowed to close the account. If your family dismisses your pain and calls you dramatic for having feelings, you're allowed to stop sharing your feelings with them. If your family treats your children as less than while celebrating other people's children, you're allowed to protect your kids by removing them from that environment. If your family makes you feel small and used and invisible, you're allowed to leave and build a family of choice that sees you and values you. You're allowed. You're allowed. You're allowed. And it's not selfish. It's survival. It's not cruel. It's self-respect. It's not betrayal. It's boundaries. I didn't ruin Christmas. Christmas was already ruined by years of inequity and favoritism and taking advantage of someone who loved too much and asked for too little. I just finally stopped pretending it was normal. I stopped pretending it didn't hurt. I stopped pretending my kids deserved to be treated like they mattered less. I stopped pretending I could fix people who didn't want to be fixed. And I started building something better. My life isn't perfect now. I still have bills to pay and problems to solve and hard days. But the problems are mine, not everyone else's. The bills are ones I can manage without also carrying 3 other households. The hard days don't include phone calls from people who only remember I exist when they need something. My life is mine again, and that's worth more than any relationship that required me to shrink and suffer in silence. So, if you're watching this, and you see yourself in my story, if you're the responsible one, the fixer, the one everyone takes from, please hear me when I say this. You don't have to live like this. You can set boundaries. You can say no. You can walk away from people who don't value you, even if they're family. Especially if they're family. Because family is supposed to be the safest place. And when it's not, you have every right to leave. You can choose peace over performance. You can choose yourself. And it won't be easy. It will hurt. People will be angry. They'll call you selfish. They'll tell you you're overreacting. They'll try to guilt you and manipulate you and drag you back into the dysfunction. But if you stay strong, if you hold your boundaries, if you keep choosing yourself and the people who truly love you, you'll get to the other side. And the other side is beautiful. It's quiet mornings with coffee and no anxiety. It's laughter with your kids without the shadow of obligation hanging over you. It's being able to look at your bank account without that sick feeling in your stomach. It's sleeping through the night. It's smiling for real, not just for show. It's freedom, and you deserve freedom. You deserve peace. You deserve to be valued, not used. I'm proof that you can walk away and survive. More than survive. Thrive. My kids are thriving. I'm thriving. We're building a life based on mutual respect and genuine love, not obligation and manipulation. And if I can do it, after 52 years of conditioning, after 3 decades of being the family doormat, after a lifetime of putting everyone else first, you can do it too. So if this story resonated with you, if you felt seen, if you recognized your own life in my words, I want you to do something for me. First, comment below and tell me where you're watching from. Tell me if you're the fixer in your family. Tell me if you've ever felt invisible while watching someone else get celebrated. Tell me if you've ever been called jealous or dramatic for having legitimate feelings. Tell me your story, even if it's just one sentence, because community matters, connection matters, knowing you're not alone matters. Second, hit that subscribe button, because I'm going to keep sharing my journey. I'm going to talk about healing from family trauma, about setting boundaries, about building a life after you walk away from toxicity. And if you're on a similar path, I want you to come along with me. Let's do this together. Third, share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who's drowning in family obligation. Someone who gives and never receives. Someone who's been taught that love means self-sacrifice instead of mutual respect. Share it. Because stories like this, stories that tell the truth about family dysfunction, they save lives. They give people permission to choose themselves. They break generational cycles. And finally, and this is the most important one, if you're in a situation like I was, if you're being used and dismissed, and treated like your only value is what you can provide, start planning your exit. I'm not saying you have to blow everything up tomorrow. I'm not saying you have to cut everyone off immediately. But start taking steps. Open a separate bank account that only you have access to. Change your passwords. Start documenting the pattern. Write down the requests, the amounts, the excuses, the dismissals. Start seeing a therapist if you can. Start building a support system outside your family. Start saying no to small things, so that when you need to say no to big things, you've practiced. Start choosing yourself in small ways, so that one day, when you need to make the big choice, you'll be ready. Because you deserve better. Your children deserve better. Your future self deserves better. And staying in a situation that drains you, and diminishes you, and teaches your children that this is what love looks like, that's not noble, that's not virtuous, that's just slow suicide of the soul. I refuse to die that death anymore. And I hope, if you're in that situation, you'll refuse it too. Choose yourself. Set boundaries. Walk away if you need to. Build a life that brings you peace, instead of pain. And know that on the other side of that choice, there's a version of you that's lighter, happier, freer, and whole. That version of you is waiting. That version of you is possible. That version of you is worth fighting for. My name is Karen R. Cespedes. I'm 52 years old, and this is the Christmas that broke my family and saved my life. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Thank you for seeing me. Now go see yourself. And if what you see is someone who's been giving too much to people who appreciate too little, it's time to make a change. You're worth it. Your peace is worth it. Your children are worth it. Don't let anyone, not even family, especially not family, tell you otherwise. Hit that like button if this resonated with you. Subscribe for more of my journey. Comment with your story, or just to let me know you're here. Share this with someone who needs it. And most importantly, choose yourself today, and tomorrow, and every day after that. Because that's not selfishness. That's survival. That's strength. That's love. Real love. The kind you deserve to receive. Starting with the love you give yourself. Thank you. And remember, you don't owe anyone access to you, just because you share DNA. Protect your peace. Guard your boundaries. Build your life. I'll be here, doing the same, and cheering you on every step of the way. This is Karen, signing off. Take care of yourselves out there. You matter. You've always mattered. And it's time the people in your life, including you, started acting like it.